Hey guys, welcome to episode 14 of Beyond the Weight Room podcast with me, Brett Kelly, and Ryan Hurston. My name tag says Beef Kelly today, but it is indeed Brett Kelly. We got Adam Meredith on the podcast. I was on his podcast. Dude, that had been like 3 years ago now. I feel
Something
like.
like that. I haven't recorded a podcast for that show in like a year and a half probably. So, or a little
Yeah.
over a year. So yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
while.
So yeah, we were just talking right before we hopped on about how, I don't know how you got into doing your podcast, but I know for me and Ryan, it's just really wanted to have conversations with good people. And it's a cool way to almost like break the ice, especially like we know each other, but you and Ryan don't. And, even reaching out to people we don't know and just, sitting down and actually having real conversation with somebody and not just like what you see on social media or, a 5-second conversation, wherever. So thanks for hopping on with us, man.
Oh no, my pleasure, man. I really appreciate it. I checked out a couple of your guys' episodes, and I've noticed like you guys kind of tend to talk to like trainers and different things. So I was like, oh man, I hope I can have something interesting to talk about.
Well, the whole thing is beyond the weight room, so we're really just like going around a little bit of everything. Like I said, like you said, we had an athletic trainer. We had Dave on, who was you've had on your podcast too, and
Yep.
so we're kind of diving into everything a little bit and trying not to get super niche with strength and conditioning, even though that's our background. But hopefully we are bringing something to some people that are either in that world or in athletic training or just in sports in general. And I mean, I think you, especially with Imposed Will and what you and Stu are doing is awesome. And I just wanted to, shed some light on that and kind of go down that rabbit hole a little bit. So you can let us know a little bit about Imposed Will and give us your elevator speech, and then we can just kind of talk about whatever.
All right, sure, dude. Yeah, it's been like a long journey with this brand because I started the brand back in like 2009. I was still an undergrad in college, and it was just like more of a hobby for a very long time. And it kind of followed me through my pro fighting career. I put out like a product here and there, but it was still very much a hobby. And then I started the podcast, and at that same time, I told myself, all right, I'm gonna go all in on Impose Will, but the podcast ended up being much more of my focus and just sitting down and having those conversations. And then it wasn't until 2021. So we're coming up, it was April of 2021. So we're coming up right on our 3-year anniversary of just full-time head down, just turning it into an actual business and less of a hobby. And just really kind of hammering out our mission and like what we actually want to do. And, we're just here we just want to help regular people become their best mentally and physically. And we're going to do that through education and inspiration. We're still, a small company, and we're very much in the jiu-jitsu space right now. But our whole plan is just to just provide resources and just help people, just become their best and just learn what they're actually capable of.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, and I probably should have started off a little bit about your background in the first place, with obviously MMA background, black belt in jiu-jitsu, and then I know you were in MMA. What else did you train heavily besides jiu-jitsu?
Well, so I'm like a wrestler by trade.
Yeah,
That's what took me into jujitsu, and actually that's really the whole foundation of like what we are doing with Imposed Will. I remember I think it was like my senior year in high school, and every Sunday we had to come in and do a practice. And this was like after, because I mean you wrestled, right? So like
yeah,
normally you typically have like a duel or a tournament, and tournaments are usually Friday, Saturday. So we'd always come in and usually kind of like do a light lift and maybe a run or something. But there's this one particular Sunday, like our coach was not happy. So we lifted like crazy hard for an hour, and then we went and ran sprints for like another 30 minutes. And we did what was called halls, where we just ran around the hallway like in a big circle, and you had to make it in under 45 seconds. If you didn't make it under 45 seconds, that one didn't count. And of course, like it's the 103 pounder all the way up to the heavyweight. So we didn't make them all. And after doing that for a while, then we were all toast. We thought we were done, and they took us back across the street to the wrestling room, and we proceeded to live wrestle for the next hour. Hands down, the hardest practice I ever had in my life. Like I think our coach's whole mission was just to break us that day, and he accomplished. Like we're all crying, we're all exhausted, but there was this point where like I broke through this mental wall, and I realized like I had more in the tank. Like I thought I was done, but I wasn't done. And it was just like this first realization I ever had in my life that like, oh man, like you might hit this wall, but like there's way more past that wall. And that was really the seed that, I just realized like, man, you just have more than you think you do. And once you set your mind to something, the option, like what's possible really is limitless.
Dude, that's awesome background for that. But also the fact that you can like think back to like kind of that mindset too. Cause like I had practice like that when you were saying that, I was envisioning one specific practice we called red flag day. And, but like I never really tied that into how I perceive other things now in life. But I guarantee you it's, you know, connected in the same manner that you were just saying right there. So it's really cool how you've kind of gone full circle with that and bringing that into like the business world and obviously into other people that are fighting now or just, you know, want to live out what your guys' mission is and everything. So that's sweet, man.
Yeah, wrestling hands down changed my whole life. I think it completely changed the whole trajectory of my life. And the only reason I did it was to get better at football. I had a
Yeah,
buddy,
same.
his older brother was wrestling, and he just wanted a friend to go out with wrestling for him. So he's like, dude, you'll get better at football. I'll make you quicker. I was like, that makes kind of sense. So I'll do that. And I was way better at wrestling than I was at football. So yeah, man, it completely changed my whole life.
I did it for the chicks.
Nothing for the chicks.
Wrestling.
Yeah, wrestling for the chicks. There's
You
tons
wore
of
singlets for the chicks.
what in the headgear.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. It goes back to 2009, and that's where I think that's interesting to hear that in high school you gain that moment of clarity. I don't think many high schoolers have moments of clarity like that. I remember watching all of our high school wrestlers run around the gym at the time and just like, thank gosh, I am not a part of that group. But it's funny to hear that you had that awareness and were able to like kind of gain that insight at a young age. Cause I think, you know, I'm almost 30 and I'm just now getting to a point where I feel like I have some of that clarity in my life.
Yeah, you know, I was very fortunate. I had an awesome coach. He was very hard on us. His name is Phil Cagle. But yeah, he just so many of the lessons that we learned in that wrestling room have carried me so far through life.
Dude, do you guys think that style of coaching, like I know it's dying, but like that really aggressively hard style, like I thrived in that. Looking back to all my coaches, my favorite coaches, not during the time probably, but afterwards, that actually impacted my life were the ones that were harder on me. And you just see less and less of that, even in the pro setting now, right? Like you talk about, you know, here in St. Louis, like Greg Berube got fired. Like he was known as being like a hard ass. There's a bunch of coaches in the NHL that are all kind of changing over to being more like player coaches. And obviously you see that in the youth setting too. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, you know, dude, I think a lot of youth sports in particular, I think if you're talking about pros, I think it's probably hard to be like a hard ass coach because those guys are all getting paid, right? It's a whole bunch of grown people getting paid for a job essentially. But in the youth setting, this is something I've noticed because my kids they're about to be 14 and 16 here in a couple months. And maybe it's just like a St. Louis thing, but whenever I was growing up, you know, a lot of like the middle schools and yeah, a lot of the middle schools were feeders into the high schools, and a lot of the high school coaches were hard asses, whether it was football or wrestling. But I think now a lot of these athletic programs, like all the kids are being pushed towards club teams. Mm-hmm. And you know you're paying for that. So I don't know, man. I think when you add all this money into the mix, I don't know, man. I think it just leads to maybe a little bit more coddling and just trying to make kids feel good.
For sure. Yeah, I think part of that is like one of the reasons I liked coaches that were hard on me is because you're inevitably going to have setbacks in life and obviously in sports. And I think they're almost like giving you those pseudo setbacks initially because you're sitting there getting put in drills that they know you're going to fail at, or, you know, pushing you to your break or whatever. And you're seeing how you deal with that adversity. So how do you think you deal with like setbacks now compared to maybe before that day, or even just when you were younger? And, you know, how do you see that changing, like when you're trying to educate people with imposed will too?
You know, I think I deal with setbacks pretty well. I mean, as an entrepreneur, dude, it's like it's the biggest emotional roller coaster. Mm-hmm. I felt like all of February last month was just like a low point. I was just feeling very emotionally low. Like I still handled all my tasks, got everything done, but like I wasn't feeling good the whole time I was doing it. And a lot of that was learned, I think, through wrestling, through football, because you have to have a short memory, right? Like you can't sit there and obsess over making a mistake. And you just have to get over it really quick and get right back into the game and make the next play. So, I think a lot of just like the mental strength that I have and a lot of the skills that I was able to develop playing sports have carried me very far.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, it's I know it's wild. Just think about that going back, like you said, to the youth sports and how that affects me now. Because obviously with my background and now becoming more of an entrepreneur and own a business and stuff, it's like I talk to people who want to be an entrepreneur, right? They have all these ideas and stuff, and it's like honestly, sometimes you just have to take that leap of faith, knowing that like shit's gonna hit the fan, you're gonna fail, you're gonna have the months where you feel like shit, and part of it is like you just have to keep going because it'll get better.
Yeah, dude, you just have to like who can shovel the most shit, who can eat the most shit. It's just entrepreneurship's hard. It's hands down the hardest thing. I mean, statistically, only like 7 to 8% of the population is actually truly like cut out for entrepreneurship, and of that 7 to 8%, like less than 1% actually create something like over $1 million as far as the business is concerned. So, dude, it's a hard road. It's a real hard road.
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth on like almost a weekly basis with why do we get into this? Why do we get into this? I want to like just sell this and move on to like the next week. Like, oh, we're fucking crushing it, man. Crushing it. It's like a weekly basis. It's a mind fuck.
Yeah. So. I realized I'm not really employable, dude. Like I've had jobs, I got my undergrad and I got like a pretty good job at Express Scripts here in town. And I was there for a while and I was crushing it. And then I got hit with a random drug test and I popped out for weed. Got fucking fired. Had nothing to do with my performance. I think it was because I actually asked for a raise. I talked to somebody like later on down the road. They're like, yeah, dude, they don't ever really do randoms. I think he just told me I pissed somebody off. And I makes sense. Like I got my annual raise, but then I asked for more money and they gave it to me. And then they gave me that test. And I'm like, shit, I kind of probably shot myself in the foot. But that completely like shifted my mindset on working for people. I just can't do it. And now I don't have any other options, dude. I think if I'm not running my own business, I'm going to be working in a warehouse or something because I can't play the corporate game. Like I'm just not cut out for it. And the idea of trading my time for like $15 or $20 an hour, it just doesn't work for me. So I have to build my own thing. I have to do my own thing. And, what better way to do that than, help other people. So hopefully that's what we're going to do with this company.
So I know both of you guys have kind of started your own businesses and branched out, and I'm very interested just because I think there's a lot of coaches and trainers or anybody that kind of wants to get into the private sector has these seeds of doubt when they initially start. Did you guys, like when you got fired from Express Scripts, like how did you feel in that moment? Where did you want to pivot? Brett, I was with you when you were going through everything with Clean Eats. Like, can you guys give some insight and your experience with like, whether it's the imposter syndrome or just seeds of doubt that you've had along the way and what's kind of helped both of you get through that?
Do you want me to take that first? You want to?
I'm happy to talk about it too. Yeah. I mean, I think for what's up?
Yeah. What's your perspective?
I was going to say, I think, for me, like, yeah, those seeds of doubts still happen now. And I don't even know with like my restaurant, I feel like imposter syndrome is almost like different than like when I'm coaching. When I was like a young coach, imposter syndrome was definitely more because I'm like, everybody's like looking at me as being like the point person versus in the restaurant. I can kind of be like, I'm not always in the front of house. I'm not always even there. Right. I can do different stuff. So I don't feel as much there, but definitely a lot of doubt where you're like, all right, did I choose the right, X, Y, or Z with whatever is changing? But I was actually talking with somebody earlier today who's thinking about leaving their current career and trying to dive into some more individual, like personal training type stuff. And she just doesn't know really what to do, where to go. And I was like, dude, do you think I knew how to open a fucking restaurant? I was like I have no fucking clue how to open a restaurant. I was like, all you can do is like, you have this long list of shit that you need to get done before I open the doors, actually physically open the doors and have that end goal of whatever it is. And it's like, I go and do whatever that next thing is on the list. And then you go and focus on the next thing on the list and focus on if you can focus on just that next one or two things, it really makes it a lot easier to like kind of see or not have to see the big picture and just go step by step. And then now like 2 years later, I can look back and I'm like, holy shit, we did all this stuff. Now we have a business that's making X amount of money and we've been open for 2 years. Like it's crazy to think about, but like that first day, if you would have like just told me all the shit I was going to have to do, that would have been way, way too much to think about.
Right. Yeah. I think, Yeah, for me, I mean, none of us really know what we're doing. Living in the world of social media and Instagram, and you see everybody's highlight reels, and everyone's a fucking coach these days. Like everyone's a life coach. Everybody's this coach, that coach. They're a social media coach. Or everyone's trying to, I don't know. Somebody loses, 100 pounds, and all of a sudden they're a fitness coach, even though they don't know shit about fitness. Yeah, I think for me, I just realized like nobody knows what they're doing. We all have to figure this out. I don't really deal too much with imposter syndrome in the business sense, but doubt is always there, right? Because you do all this work and you put all this time in, and like I've been able to bootstrap this business, and we're doing pretty well, but like I'm not paying myself. So you just do all this work up front hopefully for this payoff on the back end. And for me, like I'm thinking, I'm thinking in decades. Like right now I'm trying to build something that will be $1 billion company. So I know it's going to be a long road, and the doubt is always there because you never really know if it's going to work out. But to your point, man, I just try to focus on just the daily tasks, just winning the day, doing what I need to do every day. And eventually those wins just stack up. And, like, so we're about to hit our 3 years, and, we've been able to bootstrap to like 6 figures. We have an office. We're steadily growing. So like when you look back, you can see the wins, but in the moment, it's really hard to see those things. So whether it's like building like a training business or any business, I think ultimately you just have to focus, kind of day by day, just, hit those tasks. And then really it all boils down to relationships. I've been really fortunate. I've been able to, pivot and use a lot of the relationships that I had from fighting. Like whenever I decided I was done fighting and I was going to put all my energy into like building an actual business, I've been able to leverage a lot of those relationships and get business for the brand today. So, I mean, relationships are everything. Like you don't want to burn bridges. At the very least, just want to treat people well. Don't be an asshole going through life, right? Like you treat people well, you make a friend, you make a sale. So,
yeah. I also think for you, man, like, you just talk about how you're building those relationships, and that's kind of helped your success for Imposed Will and everything. But I think you guys have, definitely gotten beyond that, because when we had just first started talking, I was kind of tried rolling again, getting back to St. Charles, and now I'm over at Revive, and it's a couple years later. And 2 years ago, when I would talk to people if they had Imposed Will on, like I said something about like, knowing you, being on your podcast, whatever, they all knew who you were. Now I'm literally like, there's people wearing your shit. I'm like, oh yeah, I know, like Adam Meredith. And they're like, who? I'm like,
that's awesome.
Literally wearing your shit. Like that's so, I feel like that's a different level now, because the people are actually like not necessarily like, it's great to have that brand connected to you, but they have that idea of what that brand is without necessarily even knowing you, which is awesome.
Yeah. We've been very fortunate, especially here in St. Louis. We've gotten like a ton of support from the gym owners, and yeah, it's really wild, man. Just to see the growth. We've been very, very fortunate. So now we're just trying to, keep expanding outside of St. Louis. But it really did all start with those relationships. I've been able to, just work with the gym owners and kind of use their sphere of influence to keep growing the brand.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think you like with entrepreneurship being up and down so much, how do you think you keep that like positive mindset and like resilience the whole time?
I don't always keep a positive mindset.
Maybe that's the key, right? People think we do.
Yeah, they think we do. I just try to execute regardless of how I feel, man. Like my feelings, they don't matter, right? Like whether I'm up, whether I'm down, like my feelings just don't matter. I just try to execute and just always stick to our core values. Just doing the right thing, going the extra mile, just taking ownership, just taking initiative and acting. Just as long as I'm just acting in accordance to our core values and doing the right thing, it always seems to work out. So, there's no guarantees by any stretch, but yeah, man, I think regardless of how you feel, you just have to do what you got to do for that day. Just focus on the day. I think if you look at the whole mountain, it gets extremely overwhelming. And it's really, and that can cause a lot of people to have, paralysis by analysis, where you think about, oh man, I have to do this, this, and this. And there's been times where I'll think about what I need to get done, and I just keep going over that list over and over in my head. And then it gets overwhelming, but then I have to like slow down for a second and I'll just write it out. I think writing lists has been like a huge key for me. That's something I've done pretty much my whole life, is just write out a list. And as long as I have like hit my, those critical tasks for the day, it just slowly adds up.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think on one hand, right, like some people are able to just take lists and like burrow through them. Me, on the other hand, like I'll take a list of 50 things that almost overwhelms me because it's like, oh, I might have done half of them, which is 25, right? So it's like you've done a lot in that day, but you still have 25 left.
Right.
So I think there's like some, for me, there's some refinement in like how I go about that process of like, okay, what is the priority that I'm trying to do today? And not acting on motivation, but acting on discipline. Like you said, like winning each day, having small steps. Like there's things that are within our control. There's things that are without. There's going to be a point in time, especially if you run a business. And I know both of you can probably talk in length about that, right? Like there's just things out of your control and you're almost reactionary instead of proactive. And I think that brings up the important part of like failure is a part of everything that humans do. Like,
oh yeah,
failure is a massive part, especially whether you're running your own business or you're trying to pursue a better career. Can you talk about some of those failures that you might have had when you first wanted to start your business and things that you've learned along the way as you've gone?
Yeah, dude. I mean, nothing ever really goes according to plan is one thing I've learned, and everything takes way longer than you want it to. I think a very recent failure we had, dude. We got a deal with a school district here in Missouri, the Rolla School District, and we're doing their wrestling singlets, and we filled their order. It was like 100 plus singlets, and they were all like 2 sizes too big. So I know, dude, it was such a headache. So I replaced their entire order. Try to get it rushed, get it here from our supplier. And I try to take those mistakes or those failures and turn them into a positive. I mean, I think that's one of the when you're dealing with customers in particular, like when something goes wrong, you have the opportunity to actually like turn that into a really great story. So we're always trying to build customer loyalty over just customer satisfaction. A satisfied customer, they'll be happy, but they're not going to, they might not necessarily keep shopping with you. So we're always trying to aim for like customer loyalty. So how can we blow our customers like out of the water, really go above and beyond and just really exceed all expectations? So anytime we fuck up and we make a mistake or something, we just go above and beyond and try to turn that negative experience into something positive. So that way they'll go and tell other people about it. But it's definitely just a part of it, man.
Yeah, I think
it sounds a lot
between building a brand. Difference between building a brand and building a product, right? Is right. Like those people are going to follow that brand because they believe in you and what you guys stand for versus like I'm going to keep buying it because it's a good product. It's probably, it's a good product too, but there's tons of good products out there that don't mean shit to me,
right?
So I think obviously having both of those is the key. We try to do the same thing as like, I have all of our staff, like we give them the ability to give a free meal away a week to whoever they want. So if they're like having a, obviously if there's other issues and stuff, but like to like actually surprise somebody. So they're sitting there like a regular or whoever comes in, it's like, oh, I can give a free meal away this week. I'm going to give it to you guys. And they're just like, people are always like, what the fuck? It's like that shit doesn't happen anymore. Right. So then
giving stuff away is so crucial. We give away a ton of product. We sell a lot, but we also give away quite a bit. And I think like even from like the trainer aspect, if somebody wanted to start a training business, and maybe you don't know a lot of people, like sometimes you have to give away your time, right? And like maybe give away some free sessions or give away some free some workout plans or some free education on nutrition or something. You just got to give, and eventually it will return to you. I'm a really big believer of the energy that you put out is what's returned to you. So as long as you're doing the right thing and you have good intentions and you are giving to people, it comes back to you tenfold.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, that's how I met my soon-to-be wife. I was giving away 2 free weeks of training sessions, and
there you go.
One of her friends brought somebody in, and here we are 3 years later. It's funny how the universe works that way, right? Like law of attraction, whatever you want to call it. Like if you have that positive mindset throughout life and want to continue to move forward in your career, like there's a lot of things that can happen as long as you just keep on your path that you think is true.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And like, your words and your thoughts and your actions, like they all matter. So like you have to be very careful. I have terrible negative self-talk. So I'm always trying to make sure that I am trying to at least talk to myself more positively, or if I do find myself thinking negative thoughts, like not ruminating into those, just move it, like letting them be for a second and then moving past them and just keep focusing on that action. Because kind of like we were talking about those low days, man. I mean, I look at those as growth days. Like anytime you're just kind of sludging through the mud, like, all right, man, like we're growing right now. And sometimes you're growing more than others, and you just have to just keep focused and just not live in that negativity, because it will bring you down.
I'm going to tell my partner that they're growth days.
That's what they are, dude. They're growth days.
Yeah, that's good though.
Where do you think that mindset like comes from, in terms of like, there's always going to be people that deal with negative thoughts, right? Like, where do you think yours stems from? Is it something that you've always dealt with? Is it something that like once you got out of fighting, you started to live with a little bit more, especially with like the business side of things? Where do you think that started to develop?
Like the mindset of like not living in the negative thoughts.
Yeah. Or even like going even a step further and saying like, when did you realize that you were someone who would have kind of that negative mindset start to creep in, and your awareness to it?
That's a great question. I don't know exactly when that happened, to be honest with you. So I've always been very ambitious, and I've always, especially from like being an athlete, I've always thought very, very highly of myself, like as an athlete. So, especially when you're young, like you're invincible and nothing can go wrong and everything's always going to go right. Especially when I was fighting, I never thought I was going to get hurt. I never thought I was going to lose. I was just always, just thinking always like the best was going to happen, almost like a delusion. So I think kind of being ambitious and always wanting to be better, that kind of led me down the path of just personal development, reading books, listening to podcasts. And I don't know, I think you just kind of get exposed to more and more ideas of like what it takes to be successful. And then you just quickly learn that, like, we all kind of feel like while the individual details of our life are usually different from the next person, we're all kind of going through the same journey. Like we're all living this human experience. And I think I've just tried to learn from other people that are further down the road from me. And you just see these common traits, right? Like a lot of people, they learn to have short memories. They don't focus on these things. And maybe more now where society is today, I think mental health is a much bigger focus just as a whole in society. So I don't know, I probably just came across some just different people who really just talk about, not having the negative self-talk and how negative that can be towards yourself. And I just kind of bought into those ideas. The whole law of attraction has gotten very big, and just, the thoughts that you have. So I don't know, man, those things have just kind of ruminated with me. And the more I try to practice those things, I think that they've just proven to be true.
Yeah, for sure. Do you, I don't know if this is kind of for both you guys too, but when you were talking about like the negative thoughts and trying to like kind of be in the moment there, stop those from happening, and then, have better day from there on. Do you guys do any type of like, morning routine type stuff, meditation type stuff to like kind of set your day up for that? I know that's a huge box in general, because like nowadays, like in social media, you have people that are doing fucking ridiculous shit every single morning. But I know, Adam, you do the ice bath stuff too, and so do I. But I think I've started definitely getting more into just like having more gratitude and like specifically setting out time for like gratitude in the mornings. But that's pretty much all I do. I didn't know what you guys had.
Yeah, same, dude. I think I try to constantly just remind myself that I was like wishing to be in this place that I am today, not that long ago. So I do try to constantly live in gratitude where I can. Like in the morning, like when I'm brushing my teeth, I do sit there and just say thank you. Or anytime I feel like I'm in a really just negative mind frame, I just try to remind myself that it could be way worse, and there are people that are way worse off than me. And I just, yeah, to your point, I just try to just have gratitude for what's happening. One of the things that I do is I do write down my wins. So whether it's like a big win or a small win, I'll just jot it down. So that way I can go back and look at those things. And it kind of helps keep me present on the good things that are happening, even whenever I feel like nothing positive is happening.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I was recently at our like organizational summit, and one of the things that I took from that was we had to come up with a word of the year. Like, what are we working on doing? This is my third year in pro ball. I've gone to a couple different levels and worked down in the off-season stuff. And the word that I chose was perspective, because the perspective of, I gave myself 10 years when I got in at 18 to get to a point where I felt like I wanted to be, which was in some sort of professional sports. I think a lot of trainers and strength coaches out there, like, the end goal is to get to a pro team so you can work with them. And then when you're there, like, you realize like you still have the same problems that you're going to have at any other gym. You're working long hours. You're working with people that don't want to work. Like, there's dysfunction or discommunication. And it feels almost like, oh my God, is this actually where I wanted to be? So it kind of like plays on that negative self-talk that you might have, and having perspective about the whole situation. And there is a time to take that 30,000 foot view. I know I always want to push guys and push our athletes to have this like singular focus on what they're doing that day. But in the grand scheme of things, like taking a step back and realizing where you're at, like you just said, Adam, like, that's a big thing. Like, hey, look where I'm at. Like, I got here through the work that I put in. What am I doing today? So when I go about my morning routine, it's very short now, because I don't like waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get in and lift before guys come in. But it typically is 30-minute workout, and then I'll sit down and I'll read a book, and it's typically a self-help book. So like right now I'm reading Seneca's Letters, talking about stoicism. And between every stimulus and response, there's a space that we have to choose how we respond to that stimulus. You know, on bad days, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to respond to a stupid question or a guy that annoys us in a very negative manner. But at the end of the day, like, is he coming to us with that mindset, or is it just how we perceive it's going because we're in a bad mood, or because we didn't get sleep, or because the day before we had a lot of shit go on?
Right.
And being able to delay our response, even if it's just, you know, a half second before we give the answer, and give ourselves that space to create the answer that we know is best, is very, very hard. Like, I've responded very incorrectly to a lot of people before.
Right. Yeah.
And I know, like, that's what I need to work on.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of perspective, at least for me, is just come with age. Like, I'm 36, and it's as you fail, as you try things and it doesn't work out, and as you get older, I think that really has at least helped me gain perspective. But then also, yeah, like, you know, reading, you know, things about like stoicism and just get those perspectives. That's really helped. And that was actually one of the main reasons why I started the podcast Outside Perspective, is like, I just wanted to connect with as many people as possible and help, you know, gain some perspective. But then also for me, like, I'm not a very naturally empathetic person. So I just wanted to hear people's stories and try to gain more empathy by connecting with people and kind of go down that route. And I guess to circle back to your original question, Brett, like for like a morning routine, like, I don't get too crazy with it. Like, I wake up, you know, drink some water, brush my teeth, not that order, brush my teeth, drink some water. Yeah. And then I go hit a ruck in the morning, read a book. And then I'm kind of getting started for my day. I usually take like my son to school, get my daughter off to school, and then, you know, hit the office and get right to work. So I try to keep it real simple. Just, you know, get outside, get some movement, get water, read my pages, and then just, you know, get on about my day. I try not to overcomplicate it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing that these days, and also knowing that it's okay to not have necessarily a routine, or like not have to hit it every day. Like, I can say I have a morning routine, and I'd love to like wake up and do like an ice bath, and then like sit down for, usually it's like literally fucking 5 minutes and try to think about 3 things I'm grateful for that day. But the other half of the time I'm pressing snooze and waking up panicking because I'm late for something. So, and that's, you know, just how my brain operates. And that's just something that, I don't know.
There's no like one way to do anything. There's no right way to do life. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of goes back to like the negative aspects of social media. Everybody seems like they have the answer and everybody's kind of portraying this perfect morning routine or this perfect life. And it's like, dude, there's no one way to do this thing.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because on that same aspect, like I have people reach out to me with usually like rehab related questions and stuff, and a lot of times the answer is it depends, and people don't like that. And you're like, well, this guy has an answer. Like, well, that guy's probably full of shit then. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, it does depend. Like, how long does it take to come back from this type of injury? Dude, it depends on 50 different things, you know?
Right. Yeah, I feel like that when I'm teaching jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, how do I do this technique? Well, dude, it's like, man, it depends on what they do. There's no one way to do this technique. There's a lot of different variations. Maybe this works for me, but it might not work for you. There's a counter to a counter. So it's hard to say, you know, it depends. Right.
Yeah, dude, you'd be pumped. I'm back like rolling like 3 days a week now. Like got the itch again, which is good because
that's fucking awesome, dude. You're at a great gym. Nick Sanders is the man. Junior's the man.
Dude, yeah, Junior's been training
such a great gym
lately, but it's been yeah, it's because I was in Park City, Utah for about a year and a half rolling and was like wanted to compete and stuff. And then we moved back here and COVID happened and that just threw me off. Had a kid and, you know, it was like I was a white belt anyway. So I'm like, well, already sucks. So whatever.
Yeah.
So
life gets in the way, dude. Life happens.
Yeah. So then now I'm back in there and I've been doing it for pretty much since we rolled that one time. What was that, a couple months ago or something?
Yeah. A couple months ago.
Your headquarters. So I pretty much took that as an ass kicking and I've been thinking about it. So I got in there and like we talked earlier, I took action and actually like did something that I've been thinking of and not just sit there and say I'm going to do it or, you know, ask myself what it would be like. And I think I found a great group of guys that I, you know, Junior's a lot like my old coach was. So that made it easy and been sticking to that. So yeah, plan on staying there. And now Junior's trying to get me to compete in May.
Nice. Dude, Tag Team's such a good team. They have hands down probably the best culture, without a doubt.
It's a great culture. It reminds me a lot of the other gym that I was at in Park City. So that's kind of why I'm sticking around. It's been fun.
Ryan, when are we going to get you in the gi, dog? You're going to do some jiu-jitsu?
I mean, Brett's tried to throw me around a couple times when we worked together. So I'm going to definitely have to do that when I come back to St. Louis. My biggest thing is like, I remember going through a self-defense class as a kind of blowaway class in college, and I was always used by the instructor, and I was just thrown around like a rag doll because I was like one of like 3 guys in the class. So I remember one class, he was like gouging my eyes and throwing me to the ground. So I think I might have a little bit of trauma with that, but no, I'm all game. I think jiu-jitsu has been one of those things, especially like from an outside perspective since COVID, like a lot of people have kind of shifted towards a martial arts, whether that's boxing or jiu-jitsu or taekwondo. Like, why do you think that is? Do you think it is because people are just bored with their time, or is it more like, hey, there's people that are out there that are struggling? Like I know you can't label everybody, but like when you talk about just people coming off the streets and coming into your facility, is there a common theme that you see with people with what they want out of it? How do those conversations typically go?
I really think it varies. I think that's one of the beautiful things about going to like a jiu-jitsu gym or any martial arts gym is you typically get all walks of life in there, especially with jiu-jitsu. I mean, you're getting lawyers and business owners and plumbers and carpenters and police officers and potheads. Like you're getting literally everybody. I think it's definitely gotten a lot more popular just as time has gone on, especially with like MMA. I think MMA was a big catalyst to that. You know, most people have realized just how effective jiu-jitsu is. And I think a lot of people who go into the gym have just realized like, oh man, I just don't have the skills that I thought I had. You know, I think a lot of people overestimate their ability. And you probably see this like when you're training people, right? Like people always they always underestimate how much they eat and they always overestimate how much movement that they actually get, right? So I think it's kind of the same thing with fighting. People think in their head they have this ability, but then they quickly realize that they don't. You know, it could be like a 200, 250 pound guy and he'll go into a jiu-jitsu gym thinking, oh, I'm big and strong and this is going to work out for me. But then they'll go with somebody half their size and they'll get choked out really quickly. So I think it's just that shattering of that illusion that they had in their head. and they just realize like, oh man, I really need to hone in on this skill, and or they want to build confidence, or maybe they want to lose weight. So I think the reasons vary, but ultimately I think typically people just have a realization that what was in their head doesn't really match reality. I was actually teaching class last week, and I was talking to this guy. I was like, hey man, like what brought you in? Like how long have you been training here? I typically don't learn people's names unless they've been training for a year, to be honest with you. Like white belts, they come and go all the time, and I just don't have the bandwidth to learn your name unless I know you're going to stick around. So this guy's been there for almost a year. Really good dude. His name's Blake. And he was telling me that he was at work, and there was a bigger guy kind of confronted him, and he was like scared shitless. Unfortunately, like he didn't have to fight, but he quickly realized like if he did have to fight, it wasn't going to work out for him. So he's like, man, I got to get in there and start training. So I think you probably come across that quite a bit, or maybe they're just looking for a community, right? Like maybe they're a former athlete, or they just don't have any friends. They want to meet some friends. So they go to the gym, and that's a great place to do it. So the reasons could be numerous, but it always kind of like boils down to like they just had this shift in perspective where they realize like I do need to learn this skill. They want to gain confidence or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So it depends.
It depends. That's a long-winded answer to say it depends.
No, I know for me, I think it helps that I had the background of wrestling. So like, that's always something I gravitated towards in general. Like I just grew up wrestling and I liked doing that. And I was halfway decent at it, which makes it easier to like, right. And then coming into jiu-jitsu, like I definitely had the confidence of being like, oh, well, like at least I wrestled and stuff. And it's like I think that, I don't know if it necessarily helps me as much as it makes it easier for me to be okay with being smashed and not panic because I'm used to that pressure. But other than that, like just get the living shit beat out of me all the time. And I don't know, there's something to it where I'm like, oh fuck, I just like had this one thing happen and I know what I did wrong, what I should do next time. And then it becomes like just another task that you're like learning, or becomes a puzzle. I kind of like equated a lot to when I was in college. I really got into doing like bouldering and rock climbing, which it's like a puzzle. Like you have to be in specifically certain positions. And if your hips out just a little bit, it doesn't work. Same thing with jiu-jitsu. And there's certain moves. Like I was literally trying to remember a scissor sweep, which is super easy. I did it all the time my first year. And then like I came back after 2 years off and I was like, what the fuck am I missing? And I was like, my hips, I just needed to like pull out to the side, and that was it. And I like,
create an angle
the whole time and wasn't doing shit. I'm like, somebody's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. And it just becomes a puzzle. So for me, it's really cool on that mental side of things, but then obviously it's super physical sport too. So
yeah, the details matter. And jiu-jitsu is a really good way to get you uncomfortable. You're getting smashed. You get into some very tight situations, and you have to learn to just like calm your mind, breathe through this situation, try to find just an inch where you can breathe. And I think that carries over into life. I mean, you're stressed at work, but it's not nearly as stressful if you've just dealt with getting smashed for, an hour and a half, the day before, and you couldn't breathe, and we're practicing, simulated murder. So it helps a lot. It helps carry you through your day.
Dude, I rolled with one of your guys, Sam, today, who was a pro baseball guy for a while.
Oh, Sam Coonrod, he was in there?
Yeah, he was in there.
Let's go.
First like class. So he's like, we're training. Dustin was like showing us some stuff, and then he was like, well, are we rolling live? What do we do now? And I was like, I'll show you, man. And, I was talking to some other guys after, because he was a pro pitcher, so he's a tall, lanky dude.
Yeah.
He's kind of a tall, lanky dude in there. He's never been there before. You're kind of like, oh, he might be kind of easy to throw around, but I mean, shit, he was a professional athlete. Like he's fucking strong.
Dude, Sam's a stud, dude. He's super strong. He's a hard worker. I think we've been training together for like 4 months.
Yeah, he was saying he's been doing individual training. I was like, oh, where are you doing that at? And then he said, Adam. And I was like, that's why everything you have is imposable. Got it, man.
Brad, I think you would have a different perspective if you would have seen him lift with Stu when he was like repping out 500-pound back squats. Like that dude, I remember seeing him, and he was like freaky strong.
I think fuck it.
Nice, dude. I think there's something to be said for like people doing shit that's hard or that they're not just immediately good at. For me, it's fly fishing. For other people, it's jiu-jitsu. Like that is such an important part of life. If you want something outside of just like go to work, come home, go to work, come home, you have to do something that's going to challenge you, whether that's an instrument, whether that's exercise, martial arts, sports. There's got to be something as a person that you need that's going to try to challenge you to be better. And if you don't have that, you're just kind of like floating through life aimlessly.
Like a bag in the wind.
Yeah.
Like a bag in the wind.
I think that's also why I enjoy entrepreneurship so much. And I'm sure, Adam, you're probably the same way, is like, because it's just another challenge, right? It's something that it's not given to you. You don't know what the next day is going to hold. And for me, like, that's something that's not only exciting, but very rewarding. And I know I have like a desk job, but it's not a normal desk job. I'm all over the place, and that helps me. Like, I could never like sit there all day, like at a like monotonous like job. Like,
Oh, that's brutal.
yeah, like I kind of joke like when I was at the Olympics, it was fucking batshit crazy, like chaos, and I feel like I always thrived in chaos because that's like how my mind works. I don't know why, but yeah, for me, that's kind of why I've always had something else going on besides just a standard job. So
yeah, I think when you learn how to learn, or how you learn best, and like you learn that you can get better at something, it's like a superpower for yourself. You know what I mean? I used to think about, like, I've had a ton of jobs like growing up, because there was always this time in my life where I was thinking, all right, I'm just going to get my degree. I'm going to get this really awesome high paying job. So this job that I'm doing right now is like, it's just a job for now. So I'd have a lot of different jobs. Like, anytime you start a new job, like, you suck at it. And I'd always just tell myself, all right, well, in a few weeks or a month or 2 months, eventually I'll be able to do this in my sleep, and it won't be anything. So I think that was kind of like the catalyst for me to like understand that in the beginning, you're going to suck at something, but as long as you keep doing it and you just keep showing up, eventually you will get at least decent at it, and it won't be as hard. You won't get those same like butterflies in your stomach whenever you're first starting something. You just got to keep showing up.
yeah. So I got to tell all of our young interns that always come in and they're not good at coaching, or they have stuff going on. It's like, you just get to spend time doing it, man. Like I tell young coaches all the time, like, go out and find somebody to coach for free. It could be a fucking old lady and teaching them how to play badminton. I don't give a shit. Like, coaching's coaching, and you're going to get better at it the more you do it. So that's how it is with everything. But
yeah, gotta get those fucking reps in, dude.
Yep. So what you're saying is I need to go back and roll tomorrow again. Got it.
Yeah, 100%.
Dude, Fridays there are intense.
Those are the best though, because
Friday
like so many people come in.
There's like 20 guys. Everybody's like fucking super high belt. I'm like, dude, I went there one time. I was the only white belt. I was like, nice.
That's the best though. That's such a good room. Like, you're getting Watson people in there. You're getting head nod people in there. Obviously, the Revive people are in there. It's such a good room on Fridays. It's legit.
I think it was like the second week when I did a Friday, and I was like, oh, fuck.
Have you rolled with Nick yet? Have you rolled with Nick?
No, not yet, actually, because he's usually doing the night classes, and I'm there at lunchtime most of the time.
Oh, okay.
I'm like morning and lunch just because of, kids and shit. So.
Yeah. I didn't know if you maybe ran into him on a Friday or something.
Not yet. So, but maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. Such a stud. He always beats my ass all the time. Every time I feel like I'm okay, I'll go roll with Nick, and I'm like, oh, I'm not that great.
Yeah. Dude, there's nothing better than starting the day off with, whether it be jiu-jitsu or something that's like difficult, just working out, whatever, like just sets off your whole day. And I kind of would joke with my wife about, like, when I did early morning jiu-jitsu classes, it's like, dude, I've been choked out 3 times a day. Like, fuck, it's going to happen the rest of the day. We're fine. So same thing with like lifting. I feel like when I have a heavy lift, like throw on some fucking death metal and have some heavy lift, and then the rest of the day is pretty mellow. So
yeah. I've always been a morning person, but kind of going back just to even in high school sports, you have those morning practices or practices before school, and I didn't want to go do those, but I always felt great afterwards. And I think, again, is just doing sports as a kid in high school really set the precedent for my whole life.
It's wild.
Yeah, like it kind of teaches you those same lessons. Like, you get in there, you don't want to do it, you get the workout in, you feel great. And yeah, man, I've just been addicted to it ever since.
They had you doing home ec and geography and all this bullshit, but it was wrestling that did it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We would show up sometimes, and we'd have practice. Like, it wasn't like an official practice because we couldn't have an official practice, but we'd be in there practicing. And yeah, man, it's like, man, I don't want to fucking do this, but I have to do it. And I never regretted doing it.
Nope.
So I feel like my whole life has just been taking the same routine that I had in high school, whether it was like go to school and then get off of school. And then I would, go do a sport. And then whenever I wasn't in school anymore, it just became work and then the sport. And then like whenever I didn't have like wrestling anymore, it became MMA. So like it's just always kind of like the same routine, but just plug and play different things. But it's always been like training, get your work done, and the rest kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, Ryan, we're going to have to get you in. Maybe we'll go out and check out their HQ and roll there, and Adam can beat the shit out of both of us when you're in town next time.
That'd be great.
I'll do that next time I'm in St. Louis. I'll make sure to stop by.
Is the next time you're in St. Louis your wedding? Because maybe we should wait.
I'll do it the day before my wedding so I can show up just like battered. Just really
have a black eye.
Really make sure this is all fucked up before I show up for the wedding. I'm sure that would be greatly appreciated.
Like
Dude, so is St. Louis your home base, and then you just kind of travel where you have to go with the team?
So I'm from St. Louis. I moved out to Arizona, and I work with the AA team during the season. So I'm out in Hartford, Connecticut. So the Rockies are the main team, and then AAA is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then I'm all the way across on the east side, over in Hartford. So we travel up and down the East Coast to play.
Oh, cool. That's a lot of travel.
Lots of travel.
I used to think traveling would be like the greatest thing, but then it's really just one city to one hotel room to the next.
That's really what it is. I mean, we do 6-day stands, 7-day stands. So we're in a hotel, we're back home, it's that for 6 months in a row, and then come back home to Phoenix. We now call Phoenix our home. And when we can, we make it back to St. Louis because our families are from St. Louis. So next time I'm there, I'll definitely have to stop by.
Yeah, that'd be cool. There's a lot of good training out in Phoenix too, though.
Yeah, you know some guys out here?
Dude, I think the lab is in the Phoenix Phoenix area, and that's like an MMA gym, but they have pretty good jiu-jitsu there too. I'm not going to pretend to know all the jiu-jitsu gyms in Phoenix.
Well, my boss, he rolls from time to time, so I'll have to ask him where he goes, and maybe I'll tag along. He would eat me if I went, so we'll see, and maybe I'll have to roll with him.
Yeah, we're gonna peer pressure you until you join.
Okay, I'll make sure to send you guys a video of me being just like stomped out.
We like to joke around about like getting stomped out and choked out and stuff, but I think one of the cool things about jiu-jitsu also is like when you're new and you go there, like everybody knows you're new, right? They're not gonna like fucking kick your ass, whatever. Like sometimes I like kind of get not upset, but like I was rolling with like a purple belt today, and clearly he's not like trying his hardest because he can just beat the shit out of me, and I was like, dude, I want you to like try harder. Then you just like fucking choke me out. So, like a lot of times they're going to like help you out. And for me, sometimes most beneficial stuff is rolling with like those higher belts because, they can kind of tell me like, I've had people literally stop and they're like, no, you want to grab here instead. And this is why, or whatever. And they're guiding you through that versus just like Fight Club. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a lot safer. Safer because if you're going against like another white belt or even a blue belt, sometimes they have a little bit more ego, a lot more to prove, and they're going to go a lot harder. And if you go with a higher belt, they're going to usually kind of be a little bit more chill.
Yeah, I have an outside question just because I'm very inexperienced in the world of jiu-jitsu. What makes it so difficult, or what makes guys at a higher rank so much better than lower? Is it leverage? Is it staying calm under pressure? Like, what is the advancement that you see from someone who just starts to someone that's been doing it for 10 plus years?
So yes, to both. Yeah. Just what are they doing? But I think the biggest thing is like the natural instinct, that your natural human instinct is all wrong. So anything that you're going to kind of just do off of instinct is probably the wrong thing. Most movements in jiu-jitsu aren't natural. So you think you're going to do one thing, but you typically have to do the opposite, which is so weird. So for example, like if you're on your back and say somebody has like they're mounted you and they're on your chest, the natural instinct is like kind of like try to bench press them and push them off. But now you're extending your arms and you're going to get arm barred. And that's just like a simple case, but you kind of run into those situations time and time again where it's like you think you need to roll this way, but that's really the wrong way. So it's just kind of like learning those movement patterns because they aren't natural. Whatever kind of tends to come natural is going to kind of usually put you in a bad situation, unless you're like a wrestler and you kind of have some sort of grappling experience prior to that, that can kind of help, lend to jiu-jitsu. But in general, your natural reactions are going to get you in trouble.
Would you say it's really like calming down your fight or flight and just like operating under a cool pressure instead of having like your sympathetic nervous system just spike up and have this massive adrenaline rush to do, right? Like, because say you're under a car, right? Like your natural instinct is to try to like push out, or if you're in a fight, like you're predisposed to do that. Is it just like you said, Brett, like frequency of knowing and being in those situations to just like remain calm, even though like, do you feel different now than you did when you first got in a fight or you first rolled, just because like, your natural instinct is to push away, but you have just this completely different perspective on that now?
Yeah, for sure, dude. I think you get the reps and you just kind of start building this database of like what works and what doesn't work. You get put in those uncomfortable situations. So you do learn how to calm your mind down in those situations. Because in the beginning, it's all chaotic, right? You're trying to learn which way is up. Especially when you first start and you don't know anything, it's like drinking from a fire hose. So in the beginning, you're just trying to figure out, what is this thing, jiu-jitsu? Like, what's the goal? What am I trying to do? Most people are so focused on like the end game, like they're trying to get a submission, but really there's just really a common phrase is like position before submission. I've kind of switched that to like control before a finish, where whenever I'm rolling, I'm just typically trying to get control, trying to own the position before I even try to even go for a submission. And even then, I'm not really forcing anything. I think a very common mistake with people who are newer is they get tunnel vision and they want to force a submission, or they get locked in on this one submission and they'll put themselves in bad positions to try to get that end goal. But ultimately, you like, the more you do it, you learn to calm your mind, you learn to recognize things. You do gain the ability to have like better leverage. You learn angles. There's a lot to it. It's a pretty complex puzzle, but ultimately it just kind of boils down to just like getting those reps in and like putting yourself in that uncomfortable position so you can, make sense of all the chaos and control your mind. I think that's been a big driver for me. Like, I want to be able to have a calm mind when the chaos ensues. And like, that was kind of like a big thing with me with fighting, because fighting is chaotic. So you just got to learn to, be calm in the chaos and still perform.
Yeah. I think, going on when I was talking about it kind of being like a puzzle, just like a lot of sports, I think obviously I'm a fucking white belt and I suck, but like from seeing what other people do and have done to me, it seems like they have this, Rolodex in their mind of all these different like submissions, moves, different ways that they can manipulate like, me into different positions. Right. And it's all dependent on kind of what I'm doing. So as an athlete, your reaction to what you're seeing, which is constantly changing, right? And you might not be thinking about, I'm going to go and try to do this submission. It's just like, it becomes an instinct. You've done it so many times, right? And, in a really easier, scenario for me, like I'm trying to go for potentially an American, whatever, like basically like a shoulder crank Ryan. And then, as I'm working on the shoulder or whatever, they're trying to fight against it. So then my hand goes up to like a choke, and then they're going up to fight against that. So then I go to the other arm, and it's like I'm working on 3 different moves at once. And like, I'm very cognizant that I'm working on those 3 things, mainly because those are like the 3 things I know. But like a higher belts are going to know way more. And they're, depending on how I react to it, they're naturally going to go into something else that then could roll into 5 other things. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's like having that database in your head for sure.
Yeah. It's like I'm working on 1s and 0s and they're, they have the whole fucking alphabet.
It almost seems unfair.
Almost, right?
I guess it depends on what side you're on.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thanks for hopping on. Shit, that's already fucking an hour.
Yeah, dude, that flew by.
Podcast just because we were just talking about random shit. But if you wanted to say anything about where people can find you, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, dude. Brian, Brett, thank you guys so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. This was really fun. I feel like I'm a little rusty on the podcast game, so this was great. But yeah, if anybody wanted to check us out, they can just go to imposedwill.com. They can check us out on Instagram on imposedwill. If they did want to follow me, it looks like we have my handle here at Adam Meredith. But just check us out online or on Instagram. I would say maybe Facebook too, but I actually had my Facebook hacked. And so I can't even like access that business page. I'm sure I have tons of messages on there, and people think we're a shitty ass business because I can't respond to those. But
right, it's
yeah.
Facebook. There's not that many people that are on it probably anymore.
Yeah,
Even like my
Facebook
mom.
sucks.
My mom's on it.
My mom's on there too.
There you go.
There you go. But
Thanks,
yeah,
man.
dude, just check us out at imposedwill.com or on Instagram, imposedwill. And yeah, that's how to get a hold of us.
Sweet, dude. Thanks for hopping on. See ya.
Dude, thank